I first started printmaking when I was at OCAD, back when it was OCA. But I never really got into the printmaking. I was too busy drawing and painting. And it wasn't until I came to Idea Exchange and took a class with Brian Musson here at the School of Architecture. And I was hooked right away because I do a lot of drawing in pen and ink. And I guess I can, there's just one to give you an idea of, it's actually a self-portrait of my daughter's car. So we like to go for long drives. It's amazing how often you look in the little mirror, you know, it says objects may be closer than they appear. Anyway, I guess I've been printmaking now for a really long time. This one here, Flew, goes back to 2007, and I was using a newspaper image as reference from the Spanish flu in 1918. And this was during the time when we had SARS. So it was very timely at the time. And I was really loose about my pen, like my scratching. And I really, you know, you'll see I've sort of refined things, but I really like being that loose about it. But now it's still timely, because here we are in another pandemic, and it's still appropriate. So I'm working on a new image that still has these three guys in it, these farmers, and I've been adding current clippings from the newspaper about COVID, where I'm collaging in around behind it, which, you know, maybe it'll be another 10 years down the road and I'll be adding something else to it, sadly. But I like some of the darker images. And Brian encouraged us to be ourselves. So we always, it was the first time where I wasn't trying to do pretty pictures for everybody. And this is the medium that I found really spoke to me. And so I have done a lot of things with thinking about mortality. And so this one's The Last Dusky Sparrow. And when you're doing a print, you always end up doing, you know, 3 or 4 versions until you get to where you want. So originally I had a little writing here on the card to identify the bird. And eventually I polished that off and added a highlight here on the jar and that kind of thing. And so this would be my final version. And the ink is a bit more of an umber than it's just the black. I really liked that kind of the darker image. And I've always done series, so printmaking makes that really easy to do. So I did do a series of clowns, and this is the one I'm most proud of because I really like this one. And I got this old vintage book of clowns, and I've always been terrified of them. So probably a trauma when I was a small child, but I find them so interesting. And looking at people's faces, you know, what's the difference between a smile and a sneer, or a smile and a, you know, now we have all these horror movies, you know, involve clowns and that kind of thing. But to me, this goes way back. You know, I have some other pictures of clowns in there too, but they're not all about being happy. They really represent all parts of humanity. So that was my clown period. I really do have a period of and these ones were all done, I think, 2007, 2009. I used to do a lot of camping, and we were always either up in Lake Superior or Kilbear Park, and I have a number of, I think I went back for my 60th birthday for my the Superior, and so I've done this a number of times. But it was like my first time using a roulette to get all the little dots, so I was really excited about getting that all on there with my first time using that. And again, really loose. It wasn't. There's not a lot of detail in there, but it's just enough to carry it over. I've also done and played around with photography a lot. So this was back, when I was involved with Cambridge Centre for the Arts, and I was the artist in residence that year. I have one that's in my office actually at work, and we were all wearing masks, and it was really interesting to play with the idea of people moving or not moving, and it was the day before Halloween, so it seemed appropriate. And these are two little Polaroid transfers I've done. I know this one, I'm trying to think if they're, one's Lake Superior and one is definitely Killbear, but I'm not sure which is which. But anyways, they're much more fragile, and you really have to have a whole system and studio to be able to do these. You actually lift the emulsion off the Polaroid and put it in water and then maneuver it and just lift the paper up. So you don't know how it's going to come out around the edges, which is very cool, but a little scary. First couple you do, they're all like, so, but I've always played with the photography part. And I went through a period, I think I've used my printmaking a bit like therapy. So when I was having a hard time, I found myself drawing things that were dark for me. And when we had all this stuff going on around the world, and there's something I love about people's faces and their hands. You don't have to add anything else to it. And such emotion in that. And again, just like the flu one, the first one I did, I didn't feel it necessary to fill all this in. I was catching the moments that I wanted to catch, the hands and the faces. And it's really hard when you're doing something like this too, to get the grief part. So you're not looking like someone is like wildly laughing. So if you've ever watched someone, they have the ugly cry, or they start to laugh until a point where they stop laughing and they're not laughing anymore, they're actually crying. And it's really interesting to watch people's faces in doing that, because I find that, I don't know, I find it fascinating for myself, and I'm always looking at faces. So that's a really hard one. And there's been a few where I've just went, well, can't manage this one, And this one was really popular. I sold quite a few of these. And I really like people who look, I want to say normal, average, not airbrushed and on TV. And all these lovely European ladies that look so amazing. And we don't appreciate that sort of, that aesthetic. Everybody's got to look like, blonde and blue-eyed, and everything is perfect. And I think these people have so much more character in their faces. So during the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, I didn't have access to a press. So one of the pieces in the show I have is actually a collage of a bunch of my prints that I'm trying to tell a different narrative about. It's actually a part of the city of Cambridge with the river, and we'll see what the public thinks of it. But it was it's sort of the new way I'm going. So I'm collaging. I'm actually sewing on some of the pieces as well, and I've started drawing in little books, and I've been using the books sort of inspiring me with the poetry or something in the writing. And this book is called Rereadings. I think this is my 7th or 8th book. And I've got frottage in here. I've got little bits of collage and finishing up drawings. I think I was doing one of my prints the other day, and I actually just used the roller and I cleaned it up in the book so I could use that as color. And it's quite interesting because whether the book has anything to do with you or not, you find references to your own life. And so my cat on a Sunday afternoon. Now the only thing about the books like this is that they don't have really super nice paper like the prints do. But oh, I love this one from Borges. I've always imagined that paradise will be a kind of library. So I am a little nuts about books. So I've got quite a few drawings in here. And because of the pandemic, I wasn't traveling on the bus, so I decided I would start to draw things in my house. And because the book was called Rereadings, it's all about books. So this is actually my living room. And I have some interesting little, this is the bookcase in my bedroom. Of course, the cat's on the bed asleep in front of it. So, and yet I still picking up words in the story. Just, I don't know, I'm fascinated. You look at something all the time. I don't know why I don't hang these up in the closet, but I just love to look at all the interesting, negative and positive space around the coat hangers. This one I referenced actually my dad's death, and this one here, I really like this. Dying is a very dull, dreary affair, and my advice to you is to have nothing whatsoever to do with it. And it's Somerset Mom. I love that. So I've taken things out of that was in there and added words for my dad and that kind of thing. And I've just used some collage and pencil, because often when you're drawing on one side, it's not thick enough or strong enough to carry over, so you have to collage on the backs. So, nope. And I have done the book before this one was almost entirely about COVID. And I had a really old first aid book, and it was perfect. So I had people's chests with COVID and, their airways. And so I draw whatever is available to me. So if I'm just sitting in my chair and I'm in the living room and I've got stuff behind me and I just drew my hand. And now you see, this is too cute for me. Even though it's a real bunny in my garden. I don't even know if I posted this one or not on Instagram, but it's just a little too cute, And when I'm going to work, I work in Waterloo and live in Cambridge. It's an 1.5 to 2 hour commute each way. And I just started drawing people on the bus, which was a whole bunch of stuff I wasn't expecting, but I loved. And you get to see the whole world, all of humanity on the bus. Yeah. You get to see, men and women breaking up with each other. You get to see arguments. You get to see lots of little old people who are like myself, or just zipping around from one place to the next. And it's interesting to be able to capture that, And they're regular people. They're not like the TV people. So, and the 9 of us, I never did talk about all of our group, but they're like my second family. And I was talking to a couple members the other day, and I think we miss our studio, like desperately, but I think we miss seeing each other at the studio. It's like a ritual of getting your coffee in the morning and sitting down with my decaf Americano and looking at my plate, looking at my images, having another person sitting beside me who's thinking the same thing, but with a totally different plan for their print. And it's funny, Ginny and I used to sit beside each other, and we would both love to do dry point, and we'd be like scratch, 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 scratch. There's that noise. I'm sure it's like nails on chalkboard for other people. And I just love the sound,